How you doing? My name is Christopher Brown from Sports Talk with Chris, and right now I'm here to talk about the Brooklyn Nets. They are making some great moves, so let's talk about them. The first thing they did was sign Steve Nash as the head coach. Now, when that move was announced, I was all on board for it. I know a lot of people were mad saying he never had any coaching experience. Well, look at a lot of top coaches right now. Doc Rivers, when he first got signed as a head coach to Orlando Magic, he really didn't have no experience. Steve Kerr didn't have no experience. Isaiah Thomas didn't have an experience. Mark Jackson, when he went to the Warriors, didn't have an experience. So great point guards get coaching jobs without having a lot of coaching experience because they have a great mind for the game. Steve Nash has one of the best basketball minds to ever touch the basketball court. He's a savant on the court. He knows how to get everybody open. He knows how to get people better. He was like a player development coach down there at the Warriors. Helped Kevin Durant, in his game. Ironically, he's with Kevin Durant right now. Helped Steph Curry and Klay Thompson with their games. Steve Nash has a great mind for the game. So I'm not surprised that he became a head coach. Listen to some of his interviews this summer. I kind of heard it, but I didn't hear it, So it was a lot he was talking about, basketball, taking a step away from it, but then you could hear the love that he has for the game. And I'm thinking, oh, this guy might be a head coach one day. I didn't think it was going to be this soon because literally one of these interviews I heard was in the summer and then he gets announced for the head coaching job. So I didn't think it would be this soon, but I'm not surprised that he was signed as a head coach. And the GMs, everybody in the Nets wanted him. And everybody should know whoever the head coach was going to be for this team had to have a personal relationship or a great, not even just personal, just a good relationship with Kevin Durant, with Kyrie Irving. Because with those two type of stars, you want to make sure that head coach meshes with those two stars. Because at the end of the day, that team is only going to go as far as those two players take them. Then, they signed Amar'e Stoudemire, player development coach. That's what I think he'll mostly do. And I think that's perfect. You talking about a guy that honestly has the resume to become a Hall of Famer. You take away the injuries he had later in his career, he had a great career, and overseas he had a great career. Him and Steve Nash were there, what they were able to do in the Phoenix Suns early 2000s, man, that's revolutionary. He's talking about a 6'10" guy that played the power forward center, was crazy athletic, had moves, had the mid-range. He's going to be able to help Jared Allen out, even DeAndre Jordan, and even Kevin Durant, honestly. That was a great signing by the Nets. And then they also came out yesterday hiring Mike D'Antoni and Ime Udoka, I hope I didn't butcher his last name, as assistant coaches. Listen, having Mike D'Antoni on that team, we know Mike D'Antoni was Steve Nash's coach. We know Mike D'Antoni revolutionized the game when offensive-wise. And at the end of the day, Mike D'Antoni is a good coach. Yes, he has some things about holding people accountable. And yes, you could say, he doesn't care about defense, even though the Rockets were a very good defensive team last year. Yes, that small ball, works. And then it didn't work. At the end of the day, you can say everything you want to say about Mike D'Antoni. He'll be a good addition as an assistant coach for this team. Steve Nash is a first-year coach, so now you have Jacques Vaughn, who was the coach last year as an assistant. Then you have Mike D'Antoni, who won multiple Coach of the Year awards as an assistant. So Steve Nash has a very good coaching staff with him to help him journey this first year as an NBA head coach. Perfect moves by the Brooklyn Nets. And my prediction, and please don't say, well, we have to see and we're going to have to wait to see and, well, only if. No, because you can say that about any single team in the NBA. Well, we're going to have to wait and see what the Lakers do if they're going to be able to repeat. Well, we're going to have to wait and see what the Bucks do, what the Warriors do. No, I don't say that because your prediction is your prediction. Let's see how it plays out. So my prediction is that the Brooklyn Nets, honestly, they're going to have a top 10 offense next year. Now, last year they were ranked like 19th in the league when it comes to offensive ratings. So this year, I truly believe they'll have a top 10 offense. I think Kevin Durant, I know he has an Achilles injury, so he might not be the same athletic-wise. But I think this year will be his best year shooting the ball. I do believe Kevin Durant will shoot over 10 3-pointers a game this year. Because like I said, with the Achilles injuries, his athleticism might not be the same when he's first coming out. But he can still be a knockdown shooter. Kevin Durant is one of the best, not just 3-point shooters and scorers we ever seen in his game. So I think now he can take a step back from athleticism. He never had to rely on it, but now he can really just work on his game. He can become an even more deadly scorer, in my opinion. Like I said, I do think he's shooting over 10 3-pointers a game this year. Like, not just 1 or 2 games. No, he's going to average over 10 3-pointers a game. Kyrie Irving can still break down the defenses. Kevin Durant's going to be right there for the catch and shoot. Kevin Durant's going to be pulling up more. Kevin Durant's going to be in a post more. You know, Steve Nash said Kevin Durant's going to be playing positionless. And that's how basketball is now. It's not so much about positions. It's so much about fits on the basketball court. Kevin Durant's a scorer that can guard multiple positions. Kyrie Irving's a dynamic guard that can kill you off the dribble. He can kill you with the ball in his hands. He can kill you off ball. Kyrie Irving's a dangerous, dangerous man. They have two very good centers, defensive rebounding centers, in Jared Allen, you know, and DeAndre Jordan. This team, if I'm not mistaken, was second in rebounding last year. If you don't know, you know, rebounding is a key component in winning games. That's why the Rockets, you know, lost so many games, because them being so small, they weren't able to win the rebounding battle. Teams were getting a lot of offensive rebounds. The only way to combat that is shoot a lot of threes, which the Rockets did. But obviously it didn't work out. So, you know, when I look at the Nets, seeing that stat, you know, they're doing things right. They made the playoffs without those two guys. You know, they made the playoffs with a system that's probably not going to be better than this system. They have a very good roster. Now, Joe Harris is a free agent. And I think that's big, you know, because Joe Harris is really, you know, he can score, yes, but to me, he's that knockdown shooter that they're going to need. That's what I think Joe Harris would, if they re-sign him, and they should re-sign him, bring to this team. But the Nets are going to be over the luxury cap, so they're going to have to make some moves. They have Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert. Do you really need both? Do you really need both? That's the biggest question moving forward. Because if you don't need both, you can trade one of them, and one of them can come off the bench. I think you're going to have to keep Joe Harris in that starting lineup to be that knockdown shooter. But if you want to trade LeVert or Dinwiddie, which one would it be? Honestly, Dinwiddie is a guy that's scoring over 20 a game, but Karis LeVert is talented as well. So they might be able to move some pieces around to get some more money on this team, because, you know, that's a very good backcourt, yes. But is it too much? And can you trade one of those guys to help build your roster? Because in my opinion, they need some defenders. You have Kyrie Irving, you have, you know, looking at their roster, say they make no trades. You have Kyrie Irving, you have LeVert, you have Dinwiddie, you have KD, you have Prince, you have Jordan. You have good big man defenders, but you need some wing defenders. You know, Prince is an average defender, yes. You might need somebody better. You might need another complimentary forward, you know, in that lineup, somebody that's a better shooter and better defender. Then off the bench, you know, like I said, you have, you know, Dinwiddie, you have LeVert. This is if they sign, you know, re-sign Joe Harris. But if they don't, I mean, you have Dinwiddie, LeVert, Kyrie, Gary Temple's on the team option. You might have to look at getting rid of him. Same thing with Lualu Kabert, the French guy that played for my Sixers, and we so happened to let him go. I'm not going to get into that. But they have some, you know, pieces on their bench they might have to look at moving around. But if they do that, they have to solidify their bench. They have to make sure they have a backup point guard for Kyrie Irving. They have to make sure they have a backup, you know, wing that can score the ball, you know, to back up Kevin Durant. They have to make sure they have good shooters also. To me, you have two very good big men, and Claxton's not that bad. So you have honestly 3 very good centers. To me, for this team, they need a backup point guard. That's why, you know, that's honestly going to be either Dinwiddie or LeVert is going to be that 6th man off the bench. So that's going to be that backup ball handler. You're going to need some shooters off the bench and some defenders. And whoever is, you know, backing up KD has to be a very, very good scorer. So for me, looking at this roster, I think they need to improve some things. But going forward right now, people are out of their mind if they don't think this team is going to be a top 5 seed in the East. No order. As it stands right now, I'm not going to predict free agency. I'm not going to predict the draft. I'm not going to predict any trades. I'm talking about how our roster is standing right now. No order. I have the Bucks in the top 5. I have the Nets in the top 5. I have my Sixers in the top 5. I have the Celtics in my top 5. And I have the Heat in the top 5. I do. Some people may saying, you know, where are the Raptors? Well, if you look at the Raptors roster, you have, you know, all their big men are free agents. Marc Gasol is most likely going to go overseas. Serge Ibaka is going to be, you know, a free agent that a lot of teams are going to want. Who knows if he resigns? Fran VanVleet is another free agent that honestly can go get the bag from a team like New York. Honestly needs to throw in the bag because New York needs a point guard. I'm talking about the Knicks. So looking at their roster, they have so many free agents. And then even if they do resign some of those guys, I don't see them, you know, maybe in the regular season they're going to be a good team, but especially playoff time, I don't see them being any of those teams in a series. I don't. They lost to the Celtics. They beat the Nets this year, but it's not the same Nets team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, they would have beat that Raptors team 4-1 or 4-2 easily. Easily. So the Nets, to me, are definitely going to be a top 5 team in the East. Record-wise, hopefully it will show that, but it might not, just because, one, with everything going on with the season right now. If y'all don't know, I have an update coming on that Monday. I would just say this: December 22nd was supposed to be, the returning date, but a lot of players and stuff, they're not agreeing with it. It might get pushed back to a 50-game schedule, but that's going to take away from these players' salaries. So I don't know what they're going to do. But looking at the schedule, the schedule might not reflect how good these teams are, but come playoff time, you're going to see what teams are the best. You saw the Heat, 4th seed, go all the way to the finals. And, speaking of the Heat, somebody told me, well, it's the Nets' first time playing together. They, quote unquote, new roster, even though they're really only adding Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving played a little bit with that team. They're really only adding Kevin Durant. And adding Kevin Durant to roster is not that hard because, one, he can play off the ball. So it's not like he has to bring the ball up, do everything. He can play off the ball. He can shoot. He's a scorer. He's not as selfish as a lot of these other superstars are. So as adding Kevin Durant to this team is not going to be a problem because they needed somebody like Kevin Durant to be really, really, competitive. So somebody was telling me, yeah, well, it's the first time playing together. Can you really say, their championship or bust? That's what I'm about to get to. The expectations for me for the Nets, I'm not, in their eyes, it's probably championship or bust. For me, I just want to say they have to get, to look at it as a good season, at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. And that's going to be tough because, yes, I'm going to have an episode on my Sixers coming out tomorrow. I think my Sixers are going to be great next year. Then you have to look at the Bucks. Honestly, I don't believe in the Bucks. I think both teams can beat the Bucks. I'm not a big, Bucks fan as their roster stands right now. You look at the Heat, they went to the finals last year, so I have to give them credit. They're a very, very good roster that might make some moves. Well, not might. They're more than likely going to make some moves this offseason. I'm not a firm believer in the Celtics until they get a big man. So to me, as it stands right now, the best teams, those are the best teams. As it stands right now, my Sixers, they have to make some moves, be considered, that team. But if they make some moves, I do think them and the Nets will be the best team. And the Heat, until the Celtics get a big man, they're not going to beat any one of these teams. They weren't, in the regular season, the Sixers beat them 3-1. Why? Because they had Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. If we had Ben Simmons in the playoffs, I'm not going to get into that. Stay in tune for tomorrow. But point being, reel it back in. You look at the Heat, right? They went all the way to the finals this year. Who was new in that team? Tyler Hero, key contributor. Jimmy Butler, basically their best player. Chris Dunn. Jay Crowder. Andre Iguodala. 5 new guys that were big, big factors in their success this year. You look at the Lakers. AD, brand new. Dwight, brand new. Markieff, added him during the season. Who else is new? Avery Bradley, new. Danny Green, new. They added new people to their team as well. So don't tell me it's this is their first year playing together, because you look at almost every single, all the teams going in last year, teams that were expected to be in the finals, win the finals. Who were the top 2 teams? 2 teams that added new pieces to their roster. The Clippers added 2 stars to their roster, and they were expected to win the championship. The Lakers added AD and a lot of role players, expected to win the championship. The Heat added players in the offseason and during the season and had a lot of expectations for them. The Celtics went on and got a new point guard, got rid of their center. You look at this Nets team, everything right now is the same. You just adding Kevin Durant. So don't tell me that it's their first year. They're crazy if they think they can win the championship or get to the championship. No, they're not. They're right. Yes, they have a new head coach, but you still have Jacques Vaughn, who was there last year. What they're trying to do right now is build a culture. And that culture to me is, I'm not going to say it's going to be 7 seconds or less. I'm just going to say their offensive game is going to be dominant. Kevin Durant, this might be one of his best offensive years. And I think this is going to be Kyrie Irving. If he plays, a lot of games, this is going to be Kyrie Irving's best year in the NBA. Why? Because, one, I think he'll be able to score easier. Everybody knows, he averaged 27 in the games he played last year. He had a couple 50-point games. Everybody knows Kyrie Irving is a dominant scorer. But I just think in this system, it's going to come easier to him. Then I think without him even realizing it, his assist numbers is going to go up. Without even him realizing that he's getting all these assists, his assist number is just going to go up throughout the flow of the offense. To me, this team is, not going to have a lot of ISO ball. The ball is going to be moving. And when you have the ball moving, everybody's getting love, So Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, they're going to have great years next year. Now, are they going to keep LeVert and Dinwiddie? I don't know. I think they're going to have to make some moves. And I also wouldn't be surprised if that 19th pick gets traded. Now, yes, they can draft somebody that, a backup guard or, a 3-and-D guy or just a scorer. There are a lot of good scorers right now in the draft. A lot of, gems like Tyler Hero coming off the bench that can give you 13, 14 plus. There are a lot of those in the draft. People just don't know it because they don't do their research. So, yes, but how would that help with the cap? How would that help with the luxury tax? So, looking at their roster right now, Joe Harris to me is really the only free agent that they, should look to re-signing. Not really, Gary Temple with Kyrie Irving and KD coming back, not going to be that important. Tyler Johnson, honestly, not going to be that important. If you can get him for cheap, yes. If you can get Wilson Chandler for cheap, yes. Also, people forget they went and got Beasley. I said Malik Beasley. They went and got Beasley. They went and got Jamal Crawford. Why not re-sign both of those guys? Veteran minimum. Honestly, say what you want about Beasley. Say what you want about Beasley, but you can't deny his talent. And I do think off the court, everything is, situated. It was an unfortunate incident about him with COVID going into the bubble. But at the end of the day, he is that piece to me that they need off the bench. A small forward that can take some of the pressure off Kevin Durant. Small forward that can guard 2, 3, and 4. And a small forward that can get buckets. And is a good player. So I believe he should be in the NBA. But, politics and everything. Same thing with Jamal Crawford. You cannot tell me Jamal Crawford is not better than a lot of these young guys right now in the league that can't hit a shot, that's shooting 30-some% coming off the bench, that getting paid all this money. Cannot tell me Jamal Crawford is still not better than those guys. The last game he really, really played, he dropped 50. Then for some reason he's not on the roster. I don't understand politics. That's when I kind of like former, players becoming coaches because I feel like they can evaluate talent. I like former players, going into the office because they know the game and they know talent better than a lot of these guys that haven't been around the game. You cannot tell me Jamal Crawford is not still a guy off the bench that can give you, double digit, if not 8 to, 12, 13. He's going to create offense. Him and Dinwiddie or him and LeVert coming off the bench is going to be a dynamic duo of guards coming off the bench that is going to keep you in the game or extend the lead. Because one thing you want your bench to do is either keep the lead, extend it, or bring you back. Having two guys that can give you buckets off the bench would be great for the Nets. And so that's how I'm going to wrap this up. Listen, the expectations, for the Nets, they went on, they got a whole new coaching staff, which is great. I think they're going to make some trades. Don't be surprised if they, maybe make a trade for Bradley Beal. Maybe make a trade for Drew Holiday. Listen, I know this is a gamble. Listen, they might make a trade for Paul George. We don't know. But I do think this team might make some moves. But regardless, this is going to be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference this year. This is going to be a competitive team. This team has what it takes to make it all the way to the championship. Yes, I know everybody's going to say, well, they have to be healthy if they're healthy. Do y'all realize you can say that about every single team? Everybody knows I'm a LeBron fan. LeBron came off a groin injury last year. A lot of people have said the same thing. Well, if he's healthy. Well, I know an Achilles injury is different, but the difference between him and a lot of other players that came back from Achilles injuries, especially star players, the most recent one is DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins, he came back early because he wanted to be back out there. First of all, DeMarcus Cousins was going to be a maxed out type of player. He's getting maxed out. He's the best center in the game before that injury. He came back early so he can so he can play. Then the quad thing happened. He still played through that. He played through so many injuries. So, yes, it looked like he wasn't the same DeMarcus Cousins because he was playing through 2-3 injuries in the playoffs. Kevin Durant took, it felt like almost 2 years, honestly. A year and a half off. A year and a half off to get his game right. So, I do think Kevin Durant's going to come back strong. So, don't tell me about, well, of course he has to be healthy. But he's still going to be Kevin Durant. He's not going to, blow by you. He's still going to shoot over you. 7-foot small forward. Come on now. So the expectations for this Nets team for me is honestly Eastern Conference Finals or Finals. I do think that, East is very competitive, But at the end of the day, when you acquire KD and Kyrie Irving, when you get a whole new coaching staff, when you already have a good roster, they're not going to be happy with a second round exit. No team that has championship goals should be happy with a second round exit. It doesn't matter if you're losing to the Bucks who end up winning the championship. My Sixers lost to the Raptors in the second round. We weren't happy because we had a better team than them. The Nets have a very, very good team. So they're not going to be happy with a second round exit. For them, they want to get to the finals. They have the players to get to the finals. I think they have the right coaches to get to the finals. But will they, conform this roster? Yes, they have some good players, but will they get the necessary players that they still need, which are some defenders to me, and maybe some more shooters to help them be a very, very good squad? We're going to have to wait and see. The draft is coming up November 18th. Free agency is, close upon us. So we're going to see what this team does. But that's a wrap. My thoughts and expectations on the Brooklyn Nets, I think they're going to be very good next year. I do. But stay tuned. I have a lot of episodes on YouTube coming out this weekend. I have a Sixers episode coming out on Sunday, midday, Sunday. I have a GOAT conversation coming out later today, most likely, depending on when you're seeing this episode. And, I got a lot of football things coming up this weekend and this week. So, honestly, just stay tuned. I just want to say thank you for everybody and your support. I hope you're loving the content. More content is coming up soon. Better content is coming up soon. Have a good day, and peace out.